Thank you very much for joining me today. Yeah, I know it's been a while trying to get this together, and I'm most grateful for you giving me your time. So, first off, I'd like to ask you this question. Can you please introduce yourself?
My name's Michael Franz. I'm a little bit of a multi-hyphenate. I do a little bit of everything with Friends and Family Footwear. I do the design, sales, marketing, business. Source materials with my team, review prototypes. Like I'm kind of a one-man operation over here. I do have a fulfillment team in Eugene that fulfills all my orders and gets all my, pairs shipped out on time. I can't do everything, but I try and do as much as I can. Um, I also sell cars at
That's great.
Mercedes-Benz of Portland to keep my dream alive. But yeah, that's me.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And basically, I got to know about what you do because I found out that you're a one-man business. You have your own sneaker brand and trying to like really just get the job done as much as possible. So basically, I'd like to get an understanding. What got you into sneakers in the start?
Basketball honestly got me into sneakers at a really early age. Seeing NBA players, putting some flavor on their feet on the court. Tracy McGrady was a big influence on me as a kid. Seeing the mismatched colorways at the All-Star game. His shoes just seemed like they were more advanced than anybody else on the court or anybody in the game for that matter at the time. This was, by the time Jordan had already gotten through 15, 16, 17 iterations of their shoe. So, to see something fresh from another brand was really cool. The other player that got me into shoes was probably Chris Webber. He kind of championed the brand Dada Supreme. Before that in the NBA, it was only the big brands that were really getting any love. So to see, a player from my hometown, that played for the Sacramento Kings wearing something flashy on court, he was dripped in patent leather. He had black and chrome on some games. Every game he had on a different super flashy, Dada Supreme pair. So, watching that was really cool. And those were probably the two guys that got me into shoes at a really early age. And obviously Michael Jordan, pictures printed of every model because my folks weren't ready to buy me every pair of shoes that my childhood heart wanted. They were saying, "Hey, that's kind of wasteful. Your foot's going to keep growing. We're not going to do that." And as a guy in his 30s now, I understand why. But that love was
All
still
right.
there, and continued through my college days, and through my professional years. So sneakers have just always been the biggest passion point for me in my life. I love footwear. I don't know what it is. I was a swimmer too in college, and I had no business, being in footwear, given you don't need shoes to
Interesting.
swim. You know what I mean? But
Try that.
that's where the
Yeah,
love
yeah, yeah.
started.
That's right. That's quite interesting. That's quite interesting because I feel like to some extent, for most people that really are into sneakers, sports to some extent really starts off as the base and the foundation for developing love in these silhouettes and basically getting an understanding around what they are, why they exist, and all of those things. So this is basically something I can also relate to. So can you really pinpoint your first good pair of sneakers that you actually got?
It would either be the Dada Supreme,
All
the
right.
the Dada Supremes in black and chrome that I had, or it would have had to have been the Air Zoom Generation 1. So like that first LeBron shoe. It felt like a second coming of Michael Jordan as a kid to kind of watch that on screen and be like, okay, this is my generation's GOAT player, and to watch him get his signature
Yeah.
shoe. And I thought that shoe had so much cool technology on it, the like carbon fiber looking weave and the reflective back paneling. It was just a really badass shoe at the time. So, that was something that really caught my eye
Right.
early. I
Right.
ended up buying them from Dick's Sporting Goods and wearing in my Jewish Federation basketball league where I was much taller than the other guys in the league, but I loved that shoe.
That's a very beautiful shoe, to be honest. A very beautiful shoe. And so, me as a person, I feel like that's one of the LeBron models that, to some extent, I really find interesting. It being the first, and basically, in terms of like the structure of the shoe and the general build of the shoe, I think it's one of the amazing LeBron shoes that has been produced since they started the old Nike LeBron line. So, I second that. It's a really, really nice shoe. So to some extent, I know you do a lot with the Friends sneaker brand, and to some extent, I've seen a lot of products, a lot of iteration. So to really just get to it, I'd like to know what inspired the brand. Why did you start the brand, and basically why do you feel that sneakers was what you really wanted to do with the brand?
So I mean, for me, like I was I was turning 30 years old, and it was one of those things where the pandemic was in full swing. You were given a lot of time of pause to think like what's important in my life. And one of those things was, childhood
Yeah.
me had a piece missing in his heart of wanting to create his own shoe. Having kind of written that in childhood books and, like spoken it out loud and just said this was the thing that I wanted to do. And I was nearing 30 and was like, well, how close am I to getting that goal done? Not very, So I got an Apple Pencil and an Apple iPad and just started sketching on Procreate, came up with a silhouette that I really enjoyed, and then decided, hey, maybe the goal is just to create one pair for my own feet. But should a brand be formed out of that one pair?
Right.
Fantastic. I can share my love with sneakers with the world, and it can grow from there. So that was kind of how it started. It was more of just a passion project of trying to create a bespoke silhouette for my own 2 feet. And then seeing that other friends and family enjoyed it and wanted a pair for themselves, and that's why it became Franz and Family Footwear, was because I was trying to cultivate that feeling of inclusivity and exclusivity at the same time from a young brand. So trying to channel that early 80s, early 90s like Nike energy that they had back in the day, that I think might be on its way back now with Elliott Hill behind the helm. So
Yeah. All right. That's a beautiful one, to be honest, because at the end of the day, we all have these childhood memories and things that we really wanted to do, and being able to actualize it goes a long way. So, in shaping what Friends and Family Footwear brand is all about, as the story of your nights with Nike inspired anything in any space within the context of what your brand is about?
certainly, I mean, I just like any other sneaker lover out there read Phil Knight's book, Shoe Dog, heard about his travels, dreamt about them myself and said, man, I want to travel to China. I want to travel to Europe. I want to travel to all these places and see these ancient processes and how they were done and how I can refine them in my own way. And so, like, that's kind of inspired that trip out to Portugal that I got to do, to go meet the factories out there and see how they do things. Um, didn't work out with them long term, but
Right?
now our factory facilities are in California, and that's even better. It means that it's closer, it's in my time zone. A big pain point of building a brand and being the
Yeah.
only one doing it is if you have people over in Europe that are working on your project and you're waking up at 6 in the morning to message them and it's 4 p.m. there, they're already on their way out of the office before you've even gotten your first question off for the day. So that was really tough for me to keep my project on track and feel like, that we were going to produce on time, which we didn't. It took them 27 weeks to do that first run, and they quoted 12. So, I just said, hey, that's not going to work out for me long term, or for my customers who are pre-ordering and spending their hard-earned money with me to get a pair of shoes for their feet. Um, so, we shifted to
Yeah.
California now. It's going to be better timelines. It's going to be, higher quality builds and higher quality materials. And it's coming from the state I was born and raised in. So it's pretty special to bring it back home.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And it's a big one, to be honest. It's a big plus, being able to do what you want to do and being able to do it within the space of where you find yourself. So, to some extent, while doing my research, I came across some things that I really found interesting. The idea of you owning a brand and having a brand now, I believe is not something that started off recently, as you've mentioned, but I came across the custom sneakers that you did at some point. So the name of the custom sneakers was Summon the Heroes, and like I was quite impressed that you, to some extent, actually went through that route of really like trying out creativity. So can you really like give me an idea or like clarify what that was all about?
So I think you're referring to the cultivator project I did with Nike. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's what I'm
so
talking about.
that opportunity came about in a really interesting way. I thought it was a fake the like fake Instagram ad because I saw one come through that said, "Have you always wanted to work for Nike? Have you always wanted to design your own shoes? Like here's an opportunity. We're picking 100 creators across the United States, two from each state, and you can apply here for why you think that you're the right man for or right man or woman for this design contest. I was selected as one
Yeah.
of two in Georgia. Malachi, a good friend of mine, was the other creator in Georgia. He now works at Nike and has a really cool job over there. But we were both given this really cool opportunity where they said, "Hey, you've got 5 silhouettes to choose from. You can create up to 3 different
Okay.
colorways and tell your story through materials, through your marketing, everything." And they kind of gave you free will to do whatever you wanted, which was, within the confines of their program. It's not like I could, go create my own custom colors. You were working within the colors that they had
Yeah.
for you, but you were able to tell any story you
Right.
wanted. So for me, living in Atlanta, in the city that gave me that opportunity, I was a part of Nike focus groups. I had a mentor named Senior Chaos, who was a longtime Econ at Nike and did some design for them as well, and brought some really really cool shoes to market. He actually gave me some
Right.
counsel. We were even seeing if the project was legitimate, and it turned out to be. So the first shoe was like an homage to what he did in the city of Atlanta. And my favorite shoe he did was this Bo Jackson Air Trainer SC High that was done for the '96
Yeah.
Atlanta Olympics, and they only did 1,996 pairs. So my shoe, my Air Force One, was an
Wow.
adaptation of that message. The gum sole was meant to
All
age
right.
like the time between the Olympics, and the green was the fields of Centennial Park, and it was a really special shoe. That second one was an Air Force One High, and that was for Buckhead, which was the neighborhood I lived in Atlanta. They called it the Rodeo Drive of the South, and
All
so
right.
for my ad, I put "Break the Stallion," and I'm riding the shoe, wearing the shoe, sitting on top of the shoe, which was kind of a cool ad.
Wow.
And then the third one was
Yeah.
the Summon Your Heroes pair that you're talking about. That was an Air Max 95, and I was attempting to work with the
Yeah.
Boys and Girls Club of Atlanta to have proceeds go to them, but wasn't able to get in contact with the head of their program. So the message was there, but we only did like 12 pairs of that shoe since it was a $240 shoe, I think,
Oh.
at the time, because they it was a little bit over retail on each of those shoes. So,
Okay.
but super special project.
So basically, like I came across it and I was quite fascinated by what you were able to do with it. Knowing that such opportunities are not what like a lot of people talk about, and you being able to actually be a part of something like that is quite interesting. And seeing what you've been able to do for yourself since that opportunity speaks a lot. So speaking of community and being able to like do something for where you're from, I know you've been able to do a lot with friends and family footwear brand in terms of really trying to like create an avenue for the younger generations to participate in things that kind of opens their mind to the possibility of creativity in terms of sneakers. So can you please share something about it generally?
Yeah, I mean, for me, when I was creating the project, like a big thing was how do I put my project in front of people without having to spend. And so I thought, what could I do differently? A friend of mine was already working within 3D printing, and I thought, oh,
Yeah.
if I bought my own 3D printer, I could make scale, little miniature models of my shoe, and like this size, and send them out to people that have touched me along my journey, and formulated my opinion about footwear, and taught me those big lessons. And I thought, okay, if I could mail one of these out to every one of those people, not only are they going to be touched, but they're going to get to have this for their desk as a paperweight, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
Maybe they even decide to paint it themselves and create their own shoe. That's a collab in a box right there. So, if they come back with something
Yeah.
cool, it's like, hey man, let's start the partnership. Why not?
True.
So it was almost like it was a literal foot in the door, if you
Yeah.
will, right? And the following that, I was like, how can I develop on this idea? And I said,
Yeah.
okay, well, what if I created these in mass and I had 100 to 150 of them, and I did all these little workshops all over the country, and ended up doing, I think, 11 now in different cities where I would
Yeah.
fly into either work with a
Wow.
boutique, and sit with them and like tell the story of the brand, have a part of the process where the kids go and touch every shoe on the shelf, from these other brands, and kind of decipher like what materials they wanted to tell their
Yeah.
story through. Then they would create a tech pack, and then the final part of the exercise would be them
Yeah.
painting their shoe. And then I would keep the shoes, but I would scan them and send them the file so they have an augmented reality file of their creation to size up in their local environment. And meanwhile, I've got, a whole shelf of close to,
Wow. Wow.
a
That's a
hundred
lot.
different designs that are sitting there from, all of these submissions. All their hard work is all displayed through this project. And so the idea was like, if I can continue to, accrue all of these one of one painted models, then at a certain point, I can rent an art gallery out and do a big showing and showcase all of their work alongside of mine and have a big event out of it and kind of put the light back on the
Yeah.
creators instead of on myself. And so that was kind of the bigger idea of how it was going to culminate. And we're getting very close. I've got a lot of
Yeah.
submissions now. I probably need a couple more classes, but getting ready to unveil all of that, which is really exciting.
Yeah, it is exciting. It's really exciting. And seeing that you've done over 11 workshops means a lot. It means you've invested a lot of effort in it, and definitely a lot of creativity has sprung up from that. So kudos to you. Kudos to what you've been able to do. So speaking of where you're from and basically what you've been able to create with the brand, I kind of find it fascinating that you started this brand off all by yourself, and like you mentioned, it's a one-man brand. So what challenges have you faced in that space of really trying to like set things up to where you are at the moment?
I'd say like the fun stuff is always fun to complete. It's always fun to put together ad content. It's fun to shoot your product. It's fun to design your product, but it's not fun to, set up your banking. It's not, all those nuanced things can be taxing to you as a
Yeah,
creator. But if you don't have someone to do that for you, that's probably been the hardest part of owning your own business, is having to do a lot of the clerical stuff that you don't really want to touch and that you'd love to have an assistant to do for you. So if
yeah.
anybody hears this, wants to be my assistant, let me know.
All right, all right, all right. So I believe someone certainly would be interested to be a part of this journey with you. So it's been an amazing one so far. And basically, one question I would like to ask next is, what does your sneaker rotation look like at the moment? What does your footwear rotation generally?
At the moment, I would say I've been trying some new brands. I'm wearing a pair of Sauconys now, that I found at
Yeah,
a Sierra retailers, for like $40. They're the High Snobiety collab. I found those for
okay,
$40, so I've been wearing those. My buddy Gary Colina over at Under Armour hooked me up with a few pairs of Under Armours
uh,
that I wear on a decent basis. And
okay,
then 001s, man, Franz and Family Footwear. I'm usually, if I'm walking out the door trying to look, trying to have a nice night out, or go do an activity, I'm always going to be wearing my own brand on my feet. But if it's like to walk the
yeah,
dog, to beat him up, to like to go for a hike, I'm going to keep my Francis clean, and I might wear the other brand for that
yeah.
purpose. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, I feel you. Speaking of the differences, can we basically see what the old one looks like? Can we see
Yeah,
your personal? Yeah, yeah.
yeah, of course. Give me one second. So this was the final sample from Portugal, right?
Right?
In here, and then the updated Made in America shape is this one here.
Nice.
So
Nice.
it's got the one color sole now, much more wearable,
Okay.
great everyday shoe.
Cool.
Um, so this is like the personal pair now, and then I've got I've got two other pairs that I'm rolling out here shortly,
Okay.
and I'm giving you a sneak peek.
Interested. I'm glad to be the first to see this.
So these are the Vachetta tan ones that you just saw in my post yesterday, and then these are the all
Yes,
black
yes.
Napa leather.
Uh, wow. This is
Yeah,
beautiful.
crazy.
This is really
So these
nice.
two
I
I'm
love.
I'm very proud of. The goal was like, hey, if you're gonna do it in America, why not raise the quality as high as possible? In sneakers, I feel like the highest quality you can think of would be Header Scheme because they use,
Yeah,
top level materials. They're almost doing a bespoke build of every shoe they make. And so I thought,
yeah.
probably go with that style colorway for the first two to stress
All right.
the huge raise in quality that we went through on these shoes. I mean, even the interior lining
Right.
is leather. Like
I can't.
there's no mesh on
Wow.
this shoe whatsoever. It's leather all throughout
That's
on
amazing.
both.
That's amazing. It's a
So
really beautiful shoe.
yeah. So
Yeah.
those shoes are coming soon. This is that's going to be the three pack is these, these three are going to release together,
Three.
and
All right.
customers will get to choose if they want one or two or three, or which flavor is best for them.
Yeah.
So I'm really excited to have
That's
some
amazing.
more versatility out there in the market.
Yeah, yeah, it's a good one for the market because at the time we have people are really gravitating towards a lot of brands trying out new things and trying to see what other brands have to offer besides the more popular brands that we already know. I think in that I believe friends or ones can really kind of find their space within the market. So it's a really beautiful shoe, and to be honest, like I told you the last time, seeing this black colorway, I fell in love with it completely, and I like the idea. Um, the design, knowing a lot of like there are a lot of little details that goes into all of this. So it's quite interesting, and I love what you've been able to do with this particular model. I look forward to what subsequent models would look like. So basically, if you in your way have a chance to, I don't know if you're thinking of collaboration at the moment, but if you would have like a chance to probably collaborate with a brand, what brand probably is on your radar?
That's a good question. I feel like right now, the collaboration market is like super saturated, so it'd have to be a really thoughtful collaboration that made sense, through the story of the
Yeah.
brand, through my relationships, that kind of thing. But like I have a lot of friends who run some really cool blogs right now, so probably somewhere in that
Okay.
sphere. I've already concepted something with a friend of mine who runs a really cool blog page and clothing brand, and he is based out of my hometown as well. So that'll probably be the first
All right.
collab, but I won't share too much on that.
All right then. All right then. That's just, I'm glad one way or the other you already have something planned out in that space, and basically I'm just looking forward to the progress of what you have going on. So generally, to some extent, for brand owners and people that probably aspire to do what you're doing at the moment, I know it's not an easy journey. It hasn't been easy, regardless of the progress you've been able to make. So, for somebody or any youth out there that is also in their space thinking of doing what you're doing or trying to like explore the opportunities that you've been able to explore, what advice would you give to them or give to such a person?
I would say if you have a goal, like break it down into the steps it's going to take to get there, and then tackle each step as you can. And if it's something you don't know how to do and you're
Yeah.
willing to take the time, learn that thing. For me, it was like 3D scanning and then learning design and then learning, like what materials would go well on a shoe. Like there's so many things you can do to immerse yourself. There's art museums, there's a
Yeah.
lot of people who will just answer your cold DMs when you have questions. I know tons of people who work at Nike and Adidas and Jordan and on Under Armour and On Running and Saucony, and all these brands have people behind them,
Yeah.
and they're willing to talk. They
Yeah.
they want to share the tools. It's not as big of a gatekeeping society as it used to be. Like, people are willing to talk to you, and I'm willing to talk to people if they have goals like that. If they're trying to bring a product to market and they wonder how, like, it hasn't only been shoes for me. I've done clothing, I've done shoes, I've done a water backpack. Like, I've worked on
Wow.
a lot of different projects. So, like, there are a lot of different things you can do out there, and it's not as difficult as you think. It's not impossible by any means. Even if you don't have the
Yeah.
experience, sometimes that can make you even more dangerous than the guy who does have the experience, because you haven't formed any bad habits. So come into it with a
Yeah.
fresh perspective. Be excited, be curious, ask all the questions, and you'll be well on your way to creating your own product as well.
That's a brilliant one. That's a brilliant one, and thanks for sharing that. So, in terms of inspiration, what do you look to for inspirations as regards like your level of creativity and basically what you do with sneakers?
So for me, I think my brand, I'm trying to make it as timeless as possible. So I'm not really focusing on trends. I'm more focusing on, like, almost like hyper localizing what I'm doing, because the more intimate you can
Okay.
make something, the higher chance somebody else has that their perspective will be different on it, but it'll resonate with them as well. So,
Yeah.
um,
The align.
tell your individual story. Don't tell someone else's. Don't force collaborations that don't make sense. Don't try to be an overnight success either.
Yeah.
It's all about inching your way forward. All these people that you look up to, they weren't overnight successes. It took them years and years and years of dedication to their craft before they were able to make their business profitable, before they were able to get their little blue check on Instagram. All those things come with time. So, I'm enjoying the road, because by the time you get there, when you've done everything you wanted to do, it's not going to feel as good as it did when you were working your way there. So enjoy every moment of of that process and of that journey, because there will be a time when you're like, I don't really have time to stop and enjoy anymore. Right now, I have time to stop and enjoy each moment as it
Mhm.
comes, and that's the most special part of this process for me. And surround yourself with
That's
people who are
that's
excited
amazing.
for
That's
you and excited for the hard work that you're putting into. If you have people around you that are trying to stifle that creativity or dim that light, they're not for you. Separate yourself from them.
okay.
So surround yourself with people who are willing to,
All right.
you know, um, not give you side eye while you're spending time on projects. Like, maybe they don't see that as quality time with them, but you're trying to create a dream, you're trying to create a project, you're trying to build your legacy, and everything else can come after that.
All right. That's really nice and really thoughtful. So, in terms of like, I know you do a lot of designing for your brand to some extent in terms of like how you approach design. So, is there anything from any of the previous sneakers that you've owned that basically served as, let's say, a means of inspiration in terms of probably trying to improve on a design or trying to like take an attribute from a particular sneaker and trying to like impose it on this present design that you have? Was there any of that done on this particular model that you have at the moment?
Originally, yes, I'd say the one thing that I pulled from a prior shoe that I loved was the neoprene tongue. I had them on a pair of I have the Ralph Steadman Air Max 180s, and those Air Max 180s had the neoprene tongue, and I liked the way it sat on my foot. I liked that there was no padding needed, and it still felt like a comfortable ride. And so that was kind of the one aspect I pulled from there.
Very.
But that would probably be the one thing. I mean, I'd say the mesh is probably, on the first one, is definitely reminiscent of like some Tom Sachs type stuff, where I liked the Mars Yard overshoe. I liked
Yeah.
all the lessons he was teaching. So there was definitely a little bit there, but those are probably the two things I pulled. Everything else was just coming from like what I was consuming. Um, oh, I'd say, okay, there's one more thing. The Soulland Dunk SB High had the hairiest suede I've ever seen. It would blow in the wind if you blew on it. So I was like, man, I want that level of suede on my shoe. And so that was one thing I really focused on in that first release was like, hey, I want the hairiest suede possible, and they found it. So, take note of those things. If you're creating a shoe, take note of the things that grip you, that excite you, that are in your closet. And yes, you can Frankenstein a shoe together using that kind of methodology for sure.
True, true, true. That's right. That's right. Because one of the things that really caught my eyes, like I mentioned the last time we had a conversation, was the airy suede. The fact that it was so obvious, you can feel the presence of the suede on the shoe, and that's one of the good things about like sneakers. To some extent, there's a level of connection you can see in the materials used on the shoe. So I appreciate you going that much on a pair of sneakers and really just trying to put your piece on it. So it's a beautiful one. It's a beautiful one. So for people that will be saying this, I believe one way or the other, they would expect more from the brand. They certainly look forward to what you intend for the brand in the next few months, next few years. So is there anything you like to leave with them?
Yeah, I'd say keep an eye out for. I've got like a really cool campaign coming out that I'm working on that's going to be called Brotherhood of the Traveling Shoes. So keep an eye out for that. I'm planning on rolling out these three samples to close to a dozen friends that are all the same size as me. And everybody's going to be putting their own fits together. They're going to be talking about their wear experience. They're, going to be giving critique back to me. And, I'm going to be sharing that weekly.